Did you know that cops are trained to use psychological tactics that make innocent people confess to crimes they never committed? These interrogation methods are so powerful that 18 to 25% of DNA exonerations involve false confessions. That means 1 in 5 innocent people sitting in prison right now confessed to something they didn't do. Hit that subscribe button right now because what I am about to reveal could save you from becoming another false confession statistic. Cops don't want you knowing these 7 manipulation tactics. And by the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to protect yourself in any police interrogation. Here's what you're about to learn. The good cop, bad cop routine, and why it's specifically designed to break your resistance. The false evidence trick that's completely legal and terrifyingly effective. The minimization technique that makes confessing feel like your only way out. The isolation strategy that destroys your ability to think clearly. Plus, I'm giving you the exact words to say that shut down all 7 tactics instantly. This isn't theory. I've analyzed over 200 interrogation videos and interviewed former detectives who have used these exact methods to get confessions. Let's talk about why innocent people confess in the first place. Most people think they'd never admit to a crime they didn't commit. You're probably thinking that right now, but here's the reality. You're not designed to withstand professional interrogation tactics. Cops train for months on psychological manipulation techniques that exploit how your brain works under stress. Your confidence means nothing when you're in that room. Studies show that after just 2 hours of interrogation, your false confession rate jumps to 48%. After 6 hours, it's over 70%. And cops know this. The average person thinks talking to police will clear things up. That cooperation shows innocence, that only guilty people lawyer up. Every single one of those beliefs works against you. Defense attorneys see this pattern every single day. Someone gets brought in for questioning. They think they can explain their way out. 3 hours later, they've confessed to something they didn't do. And once those words are on tape, your life is basically over. Juries hear a confession and stop listening to everything else. It doesn't matter if the evidence contradicts it. It doesn't matter if the confession has wrong details. You said you did it, so you must have done it. Let me show you exactly how these tactics work and how to stop them cold. The first evil trick is called the Reid technique. This is the foundation of almost every police interrogation in America. Here's how it works. The detective starts by telling you they already know you're guilty. They say the evidence is overwhelming. They act absolutely certain. Then they offer you a way to explain what happened. Not if you did it, but why you did it. They give you justifications. They make it sound understandable. They say things like everyone makes mistakes, or I'd probably do the same thing in your situation. Watch what happens to your brain during this. You start believing maybe they do have evidence. You start thinking maybe explaining your side will help. You start justifying actions in your head. And before you know it, you're agreeing with their version of events just to make the pressure stop. This is 100% legal. Cops can lie about evidence. They can claim they have video when they don't. They can say your fingerprints were found when they weren't. They can tell you a witness identified you when no witness exists. All of that is perfectly legal. Here's exactly what you say to stop this tactic cold. The detective starts their speech about evidence and you interrupt with this. I'm invoking my right to remain silent and I want a lawyer. Word for word. Memorize those 13 words. The moment you say this, legally the interrogation must stop. They have to stop asking questions. This comes straight from Miranda versus Arizona, the 1966 Supreme Court case. Once you invoke, they cannot continue interrogating you. If they do, anything you say gets thrown out in court. Bad way. Most people say something like, I didn't do anything wrong, or what evidence do you have, or can I just explain what happened? Then the detective keeps talking and 2 hours later you've confessed. Good way. Smart people say, I'm invoking my right to remain silent and I want a lawyer in the first 30 seconds. And then they stop talking completely. The interrogation ends and they walk out without giving police anything to use against them. Have you ever wondered if you could actually stay quiet during a real interrogation? Drop a comment below telling me if you think you'd have the discipline to say nothing. Most people seriously underestimate how hard that room makes silence feel. The second evil trick is the false evidence ploy. This one is absolutely brutal and catches almost everyone. Here's how it works. The detective tells you they have evidence that proves you committed the crime. They might say your DNA was at the scene. They might show you a fake lab report. They might play you an audio recording that they claim is your voice. They might tell you someone you trust already gave you up. None of it has to be real. Let me say that again. Police can show you completely fabricated evidence and it's totally legal. Listen closely because this is critical. In Frazier versus Cupp, the Supreme Court ruled in 1969 that police can use deception during interrogations. That means fake documents, fake witnesses, fake forensic results, all fair game. And this tactic works incredibly well because your brain does something weird when confronted with evidence. Even if you know you're innocent, you start questioning your own memory. You think maybe I was there and forgot. Maybe I did touch that and didn't realize. Maybe I'm misremembering the timeline. This is called memory distrust syndrome, and cops exploit it ruthlessly. Here's exactly what happens in real interrogations. The detective slides a folder across the table. They say we found your fingerprints on the murder weapon, or we have surveillance footage of you at the scene. They let you look at documents covered in official-looking headers and charts. Your stress level skyrockets. Your ability to think clearly drops to almost zero. And you start trying to explain how that evidence could exist. And those explanations become your confession. Former police officers have confirmed this works even on people who are completely innocent. One retired detective told me he got confessions from innocent suspects in 12 different cases using fake lab reports. 12 people sitting in prison right now because they believed evidence that never existed. That's not a broken system. That's the system working exactly as designed. Here's exactly what you say when they show you evidence. I'm not answering questions without my lawyer present. Those 9 words. That's it. Don't try to explain the evidence. Don't ask to see more proof. Don't engage with anything they show you. The moment you start explaining, you're giving them material to twist against you. Defense attorneys use this exact line in court. I've watched body cam footage of interrogations where the suspect stayed silent and the case fell apart completely because police had nothing but fake evidence. Bad way. Most suspects say, that's impossible, I wasn't even there, or how can my DNA be there when I have never been to that place, or who said they saw me because they're lying. Then the detective uses those statements to build contradictions and pressure points. 2 hours later, the suspect is explaining a detailed timeline that incriminates them. Good way. Smart suspects say, I am not answering questions without my lawyer present, and then go completely silent. They don't look at documents. They don't respond to claims. The detective has nothing to work with, and the interrogation ends. The third evil trick is called minimization. This is the one that feels the most like help, but it's actually the most dangerous. Here's how it works. After the detective has pressured you for a while, they suddenly shift tone. They become understanding, sympathetic. They start saying things like, I know you didn't mean for this to happen, or this was probably just an accident that got out of hand, or you're not a bad person, you just made one mistake. They offer you moral justifications. They suggest the victim deserved it or provoked you. They make confessing sound like it'll bring relief and reduce your punishment. Most people have no idea how powerful this tactic is. After an hour of aggressive questioning, your brain is desperate for the pressure to stop. Then suddenly this person who was attacking you becomes your ally. They're offering you a way out. They're telling you that confessing to a lesser version of events will make everything better. And your exhausted, stressed brain starts believing them. You think, maybe if I just admit to the accident version, they'll let me go. Maybe if I say it was self-defense, the charges will be dropped. Maybe cooperating now will help me later. Here's the reality. Nothing you say will reduce your charges. Cops don't decide charges. Prosecutors do. That friendly detective has zero power to help you. They're lying about understanding you. They're lying about it making things better. The only thing confession does is give prosecutors an airtight case against you. Legal experts agree this is your most vulnerable moment in any interrogation. This is when innocent people break and confess just to escape the psychological pressure. Let me show you exactly how this plays out. Real case from Ohio in 2019. A guy gets brought in for questioning about a robbery. He didn't do it. He has an alibi. But after 90 minutes of aggressive questioning, the detective switches to minimization. Starts saying, look, I know you needed money. Everyone struggles. If you just tell me you were there, but it was your buddy's idea, we can work with that. The innocent guy, completely exhausted, says, okay, I was there, but I didn't take anything. That statement put him in prison for 6 years. 6 years for a crime he didn't commit because he believed the friendly detective was helping him. Here's exactly what you say when they switch to the nice approach. I've invoked my right to remain silent. That's it. 7 words. You don't engage with their sympathy. You don't explain your reasoning. You don't accept their justifications. This comes straight from Supreme Court rulings. Once you invoke, it doesn't matter if they're aggressive or friendly, they have to stop. If they keep going and you eventually talk, that confession gets suppressed in court. Bad way. Most people say, okay, I'll tell you what really happened, or it wasn't like that, let me explain, or if I just tell you my side, can I go home? Then they give a statement that sounds reasonable to them, but gets twisted into a confession by prosecutors. Good way. Smart people say, I've invoked my right to remain silent, no matter how friendly the detective becomes. They recognize the tactic for what it is, manipulation, and they shut it down immediately. Still with me? Good. Most people already clicked away because this is getting uncomfortable. If you're still watching, you're in the top 10% of people who actually take their rights seriously. Drop a comment saying, I'm still here, so I know you're paying attention. What's coming next is the tactic that law enforcement really doesn't want you knowing about. The fourth evil trick is isolation. This one doesn't feel like a tactic because it happens before the interrogation even starts. Here's how it works. When cops bring you in for questioning, they put you in a small room. No windows, no clock, no phone, no other people. They leave you there alone for 30 minutes, sometimes hours before anyone talks to you. This isn't an accident. This is strategic psychological warfare. Your brain starts spiraling when you're isolated. You imagine worst-case scenarios. You lose track of time. Your anxiety skyrockets. And by the time the detective walks in, your mental state is already compromised. This is 100% legal, and it's standard procedure in almost every department. Former detectives have told me the isolation period is when they break most suspects before questions even start. A person sitting alone in a tiny room for 90 minutes will say almost anything when another human finally appears. They're desperate for interaction, desperate for information, desperate for the situation to move forward, and that desperation makes them talkative and compliant. Watch what happens to your decision-making during isolation. Studies show that after just 40 minutes alone in an interrogation room, your stress hormones increase by 300%. Your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that handles logical thinking, starts shutting down. Your amygdala, the fear center, takes over. You stop thinking rationally and start thinking emotionally. And emotional thinking in an interrogation room leads directly to confession. Here's exactly what you do the moment they put you in that room. Before you sit down, before they leave, you say this: "I'm invoking my right to an attorney, and I'm not answering any questions." Say it to the first cop you see. Don't wait for the detective. Don't wait to hear what they want to ask about. The earlier you invoke, the shorter your isolation period becomes. This comes straight from Edwards versus Arizona, a 1981 Supreme Court case. Once you clearly invoke your right to counsel, police cannot initiate further interrogation. They have to provide a lawyer or let you go. Bad way. Most people sit quietly during isolation, thinking they'll wait and see what this is about. They spend an hour alone getting more and more anxious. By the time the detective arrives, their resistance is already broken. They end up talking just to make the isolation stop. Good way. Smart people invoke immediately and refuse to stay in that room without a lawyer present. They understand isolation is a weapon, and they don't give police the chance to use it. The fifth evil trick is called the presumption of guilt approach. This is where the detective tells you they're not investigating whether you did it. They're only investigating why you did it. They phrase every single question with guilt assumed. They say, "Why did you rob that store?" instead of, "Did you rob that store?" They say, "What did you do with the money?" instead of, "Do you know anything about this?" This linguistic trick does something powerful to your brain. It makes denial feel pointless. Here's the trick they don't want you knowing. The way questions are framed changes how you respond, even when you're innocent. If someone keeps asking why you did something, your brain starts trying to answer why instead of denying that you did it in the first place. This is called presupposition, and it's used by interrogators worldwide. You start defending your motives instead of asserting your innocence. And defending your motives is the same as admitting guilt. Let me show you exactly how this plays out in real interrogations. The detective says, "I understand you were angry at your boss. That's normal. So why did you steal from the register to get back at him?" Notice what just happened. They presupposed you stole and presupposed your motive. An innocent person under stress might respond, "I wasn't trying to get back at him," which sounds like you're only denying the motive, not the theft. That statement gets used as a partial confession. Prosecutors tell juries, the defendant admitted taking the money by only denying the revenge motive. Here's exactly what you say when questions assume guilt. Nothing. You've already invoked your right to silence. You don't correct their assumptions. You don't clarify their questions. You sit there silently or you repeat, "I've invoked my right to an attorney." Defense attorneys use this exact strategy because any response to a presupposition question gives prosecutors ammunition. I've analyzed interrogations where the only thing convicting the suspect was their attempt to deny the presupposed motive instead of staying silent. Bad way. Most people say, "I didn't steal anything, you have got this all wrong," or "Why would I do that?" or "Who told you I was angry at my boss?" Every single one of those responses gives the detective new angles to attack. They use your denials to build contradictions. They use your questions to suggest you're hiding something. 2 hours later, your attempts to clear things up have created a confession. Good way. Smart people recognize presupposition questions immediately and refuse to engage. They've invoked, and they stay silent no matter how the questions are framed. The sixth evil trick is the alternate scenario technique. This one is absolutely brilliant from a manipulation standpoint and terrifying from a defendant standpoint. Here's how it works. The detective offers you 2 versions of what happened. Version A is really bad, premeditated, evil, serious charges. Version B is much less bad, accidental. Understandable, lesser charges. Then they ask which one is true. They're not asking if you did it. They're asking which version you did. This tactic works because your brain wants to choose the less damaging option. Even if both options are false, Even if you're completely innocent, the pressure to choose something becomes overwhelming. You think if I have to pick one, obviously I'll pick the accident version, but here's what you just did. You confessed. It doesn't matter that you picked the lesser version. You still placed yourself at the crime scene. You still admitted involvement, and prosecutors use that admission to convict you of the worst charge anyway. Here's the reality. Courts have consistently ruled this tactic is legal. In Oregon versus Elstad, the Supreme Court said that police can use multi-step interrogation techniques that gradually increase the level of admission. That means they can start with small admissions and build to bigger ones. The alternate scenario technique is exactly that. They get you to admit to version B, then they use that to pressure you into version A. One retired detective told me he got full confessions from 40% of suspects using this method. They chose the accident version thinking it would help them, then 30 minutes later, they were admitting to the intentional version just to stop the continued pressure. Here's exactly what you say when offered two scenarios. I'm not discussing this without my attorney. 8 words. Don't pick a version. Don't try to correct their scenarios. Don't explain why both are wrong. The moment you engage with their framework, you've lost. This comes straight from legal defense strategy. I've watched public defenders get confessions thrown out because the suspect stayed silent during alternate scenario questions. Without the initial admission, prosecutors had no case. Bad way. Most people say it was definitely version B. I would never do version A, or neither of those happened, but if I had to pick, obviously the accident one. That statement is a confession. Prosecutors play that recording in court, and juries hear you admitting to being involved. Good way. Smart people refuse to choose between scenarios. They've invoked their rights, and they stick to silence. They understand that any choice is a confession. The 7th and final evil trick is the conscience appeal. This is the detective's last resort, and it's devastatingly effective on innocent people. Here's how it works. After everything else has failed, the detective appeals to your morality. They say things like, the victim's family deserves closure, or an innocent person might get blamed if you don't tell the truth, or your conscience is going to eat at you forever if you don't come clean. They position confession as the moral choice, the brave choice, the right thing to do. Most people seriously underestimate how powerful this tactic is. You're sitting in that room, you've been there for hours, you're exhausted, and suddenly the detective is talking about victims and families and doing the right thing. Your brain, desperate for a way to end the psychological torture, starts believing that confessing might actually be the moral choice. This is especially effective on innocent people because innocent people tend to trust authority and want to help. You think maybe clearing this up will help them find the real criminal. Maybe being honest is the way out. Here's what actually happens when you fall for the conscience appeal. You confess to something you didn't do because you believe it's temporarily helpful. Then you can't take it back. That confession is recorded. It's transcribed. It's presented to a jury. And juries believe confessions above all other evidence. Studies show that confession evidence is weighted more heavily than DNA, eyewitnesses, alibis, and forensic evidence combined. Once you've confessed, your chances of acquittal drop to almost zero, even when you're completely innocent. Let me show you exactly why this tactic is so dangerous. Real case from Illinois. A woman gets questioned about a child abuse incident at a daycare where she works. She didn't do it. But after 4 hours of interrogation, the detective uses the conscience appeal. Says, that child needs justice, her parents need to know what happened, you're the only one who can give them closure. The innocent woman, completely broken down, says, okay, maybe I was too rough during nap time. That statement destroyed her life. She lost her job, her reputation, and served 3 years before the actual abuser confessed. Here's exactly what you say during a conscience appeal. Nothing. You've invoked your rights at the beginning of the interrogation. You've stayed silent through all the other tactics. You don't break now because they're talking about victims and morality. This is 100% manipulation designed to exploit your empathy. Defense attorneys see this pattern constantly. Good person, big heart, wants to help, gets manipulated into confessing, spends years in prison, bad way. Most people say, I just want to help the family, or if telling you what I know helps, then okay, or I understand they need answers. Every one of those statements leads directly to a confession. The detective uses your empathy against you and shapes your words into an admission of guilt. Good way. Smart people recognize the conscience appeal as the manipulation it is. They've invoked their rights, and they maintain silence no matter how much the detective talks about victims and morality. Now, let's talk about the legal framework that protects you when you use these responses. 3 Supreme Court cases form the foundation of your interrogation rights. First, Miranda versus Arizona from 1966. This established that you must be informed of your right to remain silent and your right to an attorney. Anything you say after being Mirandized can be used against you, but you also have the power to stop the interrogation by invoking those rights. In plain English, once you say you want a lawyer, cops have to stop asking questions. Second, Edwards versus Arizona from 1981. This case clarified that once you invoke your right to counsel, police cannot reinitiate interrogation. They have to wait for your lawyer or for you to voluntarily start talking again. In plain English, if you say you want a lawyer and then police keep questioning you anyway, anything you say gets thrown out of court. Third, Berghuis versus Tompkins from 2010. This case ruled that you must unambiguously invoke your rights. Just staying quiet isn't enough. You have to clearly state, I'm invoking my right to remain silent, or I want an attorney. In plain English, silence alone doesn't protect you. You have to say the magic words out loud. These three cases together create your legal shield in any interrogation. But here's the critical part. That shield only works if you actually use it. Courts have ruled over and over that your rights protect you only when you clearly and unambiguously invoke them. If you hint at wanting a lawyer, that's not enough. If you ask, should I get a lawyer? That's not enough. If you say, I don't want to talk about this, that's not good enough. You have to say the exact words. I'm invoking my right to remain silent, and I want a lawyer. 13 words that shut down every tactic I just showed you. Let me walk you through exactly how this works in a real traffic stop that turns into an interrogation. You get pulled over for a broken taillight. The cop comes to your window and immediately starts asking questions beyond the traffic stop. Where are you coming from? Where are you going? What's in the car? Whose car is this? These are investigation questions, not traffic stop questions. Most drivers answer because they think cooperation helps. Wrong. Every answer gives the cop a reasonable suspicion to expand the investigation. Here's what most people do wrong. They say, I'm coming from my friend's house, and I'm heading home, and wife, this is my girlfriend's car. Now the cop has 3 new investigation angles. Why were you at your friend's house? Does your girlfriend know you have her car? Why are you nervous when I ask simple questions? The traffic stop turns into a 15-minute interrogation. The cop asks to search the car. The driver says yes because they think refusing makes them look guilty. The cop finds something, anything, that creates probable cause for arrest. Prescription pills without a bottle, a pocket knife that's technically a legal length, anything. Now you're in handcuffs. Here's what smart people do instead. The cop asks where you're coming from and you say, I'm not discussing my day. Am I free to leave or am I being detained? The cop says you're being detained for the traffic stop. You say, I understand. I'm not answering questions. The cop asks what's in the car and you say, I don't consent to searches and I'm not answering questions. The cop asks if you have anything illegal and you stay silent. The entire interaction takes 3 minutes. The cop writes the ticket because that's all he has probable cause for. You sign it and drive away. No searches, no interrogation, no arrest. See the difference? Same situation. 2 completely different outcomes. The first driver is sitting in county jail. The second driver is home having dinner. The only difference is knowing your rights and actually using them. This isn't theory. This is exactly what defense attorneys tell their clients to do. This is exactly what prosecutors hope you won't do because it makes their job impossible. Next Tuesday, I'm dropping a video on what to say when cops claim they smell marijuana in your car. That's the #1 excuse cops use to search vehicles, and it's almost impossible to disprove. Hit subscribe right now so you catch that video because the tactic I reveal completely shuts down odor-based searches. If you're not subscribed, you'll miss the single most important traffic stop defense you can possibly have. Let me recap the 7 evil tricks and your defense against each one. Trick 1, the read technique, where they claim they have evidence and pressure you to explain. Your defense, invoke your right to silence immediately using the exact 13-word phrase. Trick 2, the false evidence ploy, where they show you fake reports and recordings. Your defense, refuse to engage with any evidence and repeat that you want your lawyer. Trick 3, minimization, where they become friendly and offer moral justifications. Your defense, recognize it as manipulation and maintain your invocation. Trick 4, isolation, where they leave you alone to break your mental state. Your defense, invoke your rights before they even leave the room. Trick 5, presumption of guilt, where every question assumes you did it. Your defense, silence, because any response to a presupposed question becomes a partial confession. Trick 6, alternate scenarios where they ask you to choose between 2 versions. Your defense, refuse to pick either version and stay silent. Trick 7, the conscience appeal where they guilt you into confessing for the victim's sake. Your defense, recognize its manipulation and maintain silence. Every single one of these tactics fails completely if you invoke your rights early and stay silent. Defense attorneys agree this is your strongest protection. Hit subscribe right now so you don't miss the marijuana odor video next week. Smash that like button if what you just learned could save you from a false confession. And drop a comment telling me which of these 7 tactics scared you the most. Most people say the false evidence ploy because realizing cops can show you completely fake documents is genuinely terrifying. Let me know which one got you. Stay safe out there and remember, the only thing you say to police is, I'm invoking my right to remain silent, and I want a lawyer. 13 words that could save your entire life.